Okay, can we quiet down, and we're going to go into the final wrap-up session. Thank you guys for staying all day. This has been tremendous. I don't know about you, but my mind is full of ideas and also full of gratitude for the time that we've been able to spend together. I've heard from a lot of different people that this has been really inspiring and interesting for folks, and a way for people to reconnect with old friends and colleagues and meet new ones in a way that we haven't really been able to do for several years now with Zooming together. So thanks for being brave and coming together in person. I want to thank again the Planning Committee for all your time working on this, and all the time that you're going to work on this in the future as we go forward with the next steps. So the Planning Committee has been instrumental, and our work is not done because now we're going to be talking about takeaways. And we started the day with the two goals of the conference, one being to identify what the research agenda will be for the next decade for colleagues of ours across the UW system, and the other being to identify gaps in policy in places where our policy needs to evolve. Right now in this session, we're going to give you a chance to inform us about the research agenda, and then after this, you will be surveyed and have more of an opportunity to talk about the policy direction. So we'll give you a chance to marinate on this stuff. And so it won't be just in this session today, but afterwards we'll contact you again. And then the Planning Committee is going to come back together and go over all of that and try to figure out where we're going next. So I'm going to turn it over to Ken to give a few observations from the day.
Thanks, Melissa, and we're going to share this space. I think I'll just repeat her thanks and a commitment to be done within the next 20 minutes so that we can move to the posters and the reception out there. We tried to do a lot with the day, and again, appreciate you all participating. As we were planning this, we thought about, should we do breakout sessions? There's so many issues to talk about. Should we try to keep us together for a single conversation? And we're glad that we stayed together for a single conversation, because even in this format, we covered a lot of material. So much that I think, like Melissa said, our heads are probably full of ideas. But just to recap some of this, we started with the foundation panel this morning and really got a basis for where these phosphorus rules came from, how they built on previous work in Wisconsin. We heard Wisconsin's #1, which is always good to hear, regardless of context, and kept building on that, I think, throughout the day. That first academic panel that dealt with physical issues around phosphorus and the many challenges with managing phosphorus across the landscape was very helpful. And then, frankly, the lunchtime conversation was a real highlight for me. I already congratulated Melissa on a great interview, I thought, and I hope you all will have the opportunity to read Dan Egan's book. It really is terrific. I had a sneak peek on it as well. And then the other academic panel that dealt with phosphorus policy and implementation. Hopefully that helped build some of your understanding about the advantages, disadvantages, challenges, the wins in all of that. And so many takeaways from that, but I'm biased, so I won't go that direction. And then the case study panels really, I thought, shed some great light on the details of how are these things really implementing, and what does it mean to make a trade? Why do communities really get involved in adaptive management, or what are some of the nuances in photographs? So thanks again for everybody who participated in all of those. I didn't miss any, did I? There were, our goal, as Melissa said, was to highlight some research questions selfishly for all of us across this UW system who focus on freshwater issues, but hopefully apply those in the nature of the Wisconsin idea. I was jotting down a number of questions. Some of them are old questions that I've been wrestling with a long time, and I know many of you have probably also that would build upon some of these. And then there were a couple new ones that came up just based on some nuance that I heard today. So some of the long-standing challenges, I think Randy Jackson, John Kepke highlighted this. how do you really drive a land manager or a farmer, or I should say, what really motivates a land manager or farmer to believe that the conservation actions are the right thing to do? So in the words of another sociologist, how do you get them to catch the vision of the watershed and the potential of collective watershed management for this bigger picture? That's a long-term social science question that I think we'll be working with for a long time, but it has some relevance in how we implement our programs in other directions. Tina mentioned earlier that we're working in a complex policy and ecological environment. Very true words, and I think it adds so many dimensions to the kind of questions that we're trying to pull up. How do we integrate phosphorus management with nitrogen management and the other needs that, again, Randy Jackson was pointing out, flooding impacts, additional nutrient loss down to the Gulf of Mexico or Green Bay, just a whole host of issues. How do we tie them together so it's not just focused on phosphorus, but focus on holistically nutrients, conservation management? These are overlapping questions. Specifically tied into today's themes, how do we integrate the TMDL edge of field phosphorus index values that DNR has apparently calculated for every field into action plans, and how do we actually get those implemented? What are the drivers to move phosphorus index? And then broadly, a whole host of research questions about that notion of the phosphorus index of 6, and really within that, how can we make that more implementable? The MDV program, the multi-discharger variance program, how do we make that accessible and flexible? Is it delivering what we hope it's delivering in terms of relief to communities while also really addressing phosphorus on the landscape? And then finally, how can we really use and access those federal dollars that are coming into the state effectively? How much can we use through the state revolving fund to focus on non-point? How much can address facility upgrades? How can those turn into forgivable loans as opposed to long-term costs incurred by local communities? So those are some, just maybe to start your thinking. Melissa, are you going to talk about how they can now help us shape? So now we're going to ask for your questions, and then we'll be asking for them again.
Yeah, so we're going to ask you to go to the Slido website again to scan the QR code. And there's the question, what are your top questions related to today's conference theme that academic researchers could help answer over the next decade? We're going to take about 5 minutes to allow you time to craft your questions. And then we'll read off some of the top ones that are popping up. And this will just be a sampling for today. You'll get all of these questions sent to you after the conference, so don't feel like you're missing something because we're only reading off a few of them. So I'm going to be quiet now so you guys can think. Not to interrupt your thinking, but to add to it, you can see that the questions have the ability to vote up and down. So if you see questions other people have put in that you want to vote up or down, feel free to do that as well.
All right, I'm going to start highlighting some of the top questions that you all are asking, and there are so many good ones here, so this really is just a taste. One question, how much is legacy phosphorus a component in current phosphorus loads, and how does that compare in rivers versus lakes? What is an appropriate sustainable funding source to pay for conservation practice installations? How do we support place-making processes and watershed groups that are focused on multifunctional outcomes? How to improve cover crop adoption rates in Wisconsin, as today we heard that we only have a 6% adoption rate in the state. How can we better quantify the true cost of non-point source practice implementation? What drives farmers' decisions? And lastly, how can we apply the success of the water quality trading or adaptive management programs to the larger non-point phosphorus contribution rather than just focusing on the point source contributions?
As Melissa's heading there, I'll say thanks for that. It felt a lot like a classroom exercise, so I felt right at home there. Thanks for accommodating that late in the day thing, and what a contrast to Marissa's opening for us this morning.
Yeah, so we're commenting on how calm the room is right now, but you will be changing that in a few seconds because we've got 20 poster presentations out in the hallway, some snacks, a cash bar, time for people to be able to mingle and socialize and just let the ideas of the day marinate a bit more amongst ourselves. So this is not your last chance to inform this research agenda, and we haven't asked you about the policy questions. So stay tuned for that. You'll get an email from us that has a survey in it, and then there'll be some follow-up from the planning committee with all of you. So again, thanks for being here, and let's go out into the main terrace area, the grand terrace area, and meet with the poster presenters.
Thanks for a great day.